As you can see, the moon is already out on this Tuesday evening here in northern Israel. And just over the border in Syria, there has been a revolution, obviously, in the past days. And that revolution has seen the ouster of the former dictator, Bashar Assad. And he has been removed from power by the sheer overwhelming force of the rebel alliance, so to speak, the alliance of the rebels that fought against him and his forces. But is it good for the price of homes in Syria? That's a bit of a geopolitical real estate pun. Homs, of course, is a city in Syria. Homs is a city that was devastated because they took part in the early days of the revolution of the so-called Arab Spring when it came to Syria in 2011. A lot of initial protests were there, and they were met with incredibly brutal force from the Syrian military. And that actually triggered a lot of the initial breakdown from civil protests to a full-blown civil war. Right? Because once it was clear that the military was doing what Bashar Assad had told them to do, which was to shut down the protests completely by massive force. He killed so many people doing that they launched a civil war that has lasted since 2011 until now, 2024, right? A 13-year civil war. And after the first few years, Syria found its strength again with help from the Russians and the Iranians and Hezbollah, who did a lot of their dirty work for them, and took back a lot of the territory that had been initially gained by the rebel groups of various kinds. And it is quite complicated in terms of which groups are allied with who and are fighting who. There is fighting right now, as far as I know, still happening in the north along the border with Turkey between different groups, right? Between the rebels themselves. So it's not all like peace and love in Syria, even right now. Right? Because there are some Kurds. For example, the PKK is a Kurdish terrorist organization. Turkey fights them constantly. And obviously Turkey doesn't want them to have land in Turkey to be called Kurdistan. And they fight them even when they're on the Syrian side or whatever, shooting at them or that kind of thing. So Turkey fights against those Kurds, but they also support some other Kurds who don't want land in Turkey. They want land in Syria or in Iraq or other parts of the Middle East. So it's very complicated. You have also the Al-Qaeda related branches of the Islamic State, and the Islamic State itself still has pockets of areas it controls, even though certain politicians like to say that they crushed the Islamic State in a matter of weeks or whatever. The fact is they still exist. They don't control nearly as much land, obviously. They were almost completely wiped out, but they were not completely wiped out. And they still do control about 4 different areas inside of Syria, 4 like little cities or whatever. up in the northeast area of the country. And then there are other groups that used to be affiliated with them that no longer are, at least on paper, like the current HTS group that's led by that man Mohammed Golani or whatever. And he's the one who is getting a lot of press attention because he supposedly made this great shift from being an extremist to a moderate. And he's promising that the religious sects of Syria will not be targeted if they're minorities. And basically he's, saying the things that people want to hear in the West. But now, and supposedly there are many places where you would think there would be sectarian violence right now, but there isn't, especially in the Alawite areas. And those are the areas of the people that were related, from the same tribe of people as Bashar Assad and his father Hafez Assad, who obviously took power 54 years ago in a coup of his own. And that's why the title is what it is, right? It's like, yes, there's this revolution happening, but overall, is it going to be good? Is it going to lead to a better day for Syria or not? I think most people, hello there, I see you. I think most people who care about peace and prosperity would like to see that there is, in fact, hope for a better day and they will be actually realized. It is an extremely complicated situation. We've got the Israeli army that has taken over abandoned posts on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights in the demilitarized zone. So technically, that's not inside Syria. That's inside the demilitarized zone, the buffer zone between Israel and Syria that the UN has a task force to observe. The IDF says they coordinated taking over that land with the UNDOF. And then the UN came out and criticized Israel for doing it, even though Israel said it coordinated it, which leads to this observation. Right? If they did coordinate it, then it's a completely moot point. There's nothing to talk about. This is more nonsense from the UN. And if they didn't coordinate it, so what? Israel has the right to take up posts that are abandoned by the Syrians in the demilitarized zone, which was an agreement it made with the Syrians in 1974 with that Syrian militia of the Assad family. And now that they've abandoned it, well, that agreement is off. And so it would be foolish of them. Right? They have a very arguable right to take over those places, at least temporarily, until they're sure, until they have assurances that whoever's coming into power now and will have the power of the gun in Syria is not going to be training their guns on Israel. Right? Anyway, that's going to do it for now. We'll talk to you guys later. Happy times. Peace.